Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video and leaving such heartfelt comments. Wishing the whole family good health and peace. The next morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, Diep grabbed her basket and headed to the cornfield with determination in her heart. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy scent of dew-kissed soil and ripening corn. She wore a simple hat to shield herself from the early rays, her hands ready to work. The field stretched out before her, a sea of green stalks swaying gently in the breeze. With a practiced hand, she began breaking off the corn cobs, her movements swift and efficient. Each cob she picked felt like a small victory. Within a short time, her basket overflowed with golden corn, the vibrant yellow a stark contrast to the green leaves. Diep sat down amid the stalks, carefully peeling away the tough outer husks to reveal the tender, perfect kernels underneath. She worked with care, ensuring each cob looked its best for the market. The sun climbed higher, warming her back as she labored, sweat beading on her forehead. She hummed a soft tune, the rhythm matching the rustle of the corn around her. The solitude of the field was her sanctuary, but also a reminder of the day's challenges ahead. As she finished, Diep hoisted the heavy basket onto her shoulders, the weight a testament to her hard work. The path to the city market was long, winding through dusty trails and past quiet villages. She adjusted the load, her steps steady despite the strain. Along the way, she thought of her family, picturing their smiles when she brought home the earnings. The market's distant hum grew louder as she approached, a promise of bustling trade. Yet a flicker of unease crept in. Stories of thieves lurking near the roads lingered in her mind. Diep arrived at the market, setting up her spot with the corn neatly arranged. The crowd soon gathered, their eager hands reaching for her goods. She bargained with a smile, her voice clear over the market noise. Within an hour, her basket was empty, the money safely tucked into her pocket. Satisfaction warmed her, but she knew the journey home held its own risks. She packed up quickly, casting wary glances around. The sun was now high, casting long shadows that danced with her growing anxiety. As she prepared to leave, a stranger's eyes met hers from across the market. His stare was intense, making her heart skip. She turned away, quickening her pace toward the exit. The weight of the cash felt heavier now, a target on her back. Diep whispered a prayer for safety, her grip tightening on the empty basket. The market faded behind her, and the open road stretched ahead, both inviting and foreboding. She resolved to hurry home, her mind racing with thoughts of the day's unexpected turns. The sound of footsteps behind her made her pause, her breath catching. She glanced back but saw only the blur of market-goers. Shaking it off, she pressed on, the cornfield's memory a comfort. The road was quiet, save for the occasional bird call, yet her senses remained alert. Diep promised herself to be cautious, knowing the day's profits were worth protecting. With each step, she drew closer to home, her resolve hardening against any threat. While Diep harvested her corn, James's father sat in his study, a man of sharp instincts and deeper secrets. His phone was pressed to his ear, his voice low as he instructed someone to track Diep's whereabouts. The old man's eyes narrowed, suspicion etched into his weathered face. He had heard rumors of a young woman selling goods that rivaled his son's business, and curiosity, or perhaps jealousy, drove him. Papers littered his desk, maps and notes hinting at a larger scheme he was piecing together. The hum of the air conditioner was his only company. He dialed another number, demanding updates on Diep's movements. His network of informants stretched across the region, a web he'd woven over years. "Find out where she lives, who she meets," he ordered, his tone icy. He leaned back, recalling James's recent distraction with new land ventures, wondering if this girl was a threat. A photo of Diep at the market, taken discreetly, lay before him, evidence of her success. His fingers tapped the desk, a rhythm of impatience. He needed to know more before acting. Outside, the world moved on, but inside, a storm brewed in his mind. He suspected Diep might be connected to the losses his son's company faced, a theory he couldn't ignore. His son's naivety worried him, and he felt compelled to protect the family legacy. The phone rang again, and a voice reported Diep had left the market, heading homeward. A smirk crossed his face. This was his chance. He instructed his man to follow her discreetly, his plan taking shape. The stakes were high, and he relished the challenge. James's father stood, pacing the room with a predator's grace. He envisioned confronting Deep, uncovering her secrets. The thought of outsmarting her fueled his resolve. He poured a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid mirroring his calculating gaze. The clock ticked loudly, each second a countdown to his next move. He imagined James's surprise when he revealed his findings, a mix of pride and control in his mind. The family business was his empire, and no one would undermine it. Yet a pang of doubt crept in. What if Deep was innocent, just a hard-working girl? He dismissed it. Business was war and sentiment had no place. His informant called back, reporting her path through a remote trail. He nodded, satisfied, and prepared to join the pursuit. The thrill of the chase quickened his pulse. He grabbed his coat, ready to step into the field himself. The game was on, and he intended to win. The night deepened as he left his study, the house silent behind him. His car engine purred to life, carrying him toward the unknown. He thought of James, oblivious in his explorations, and steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. The road ahead was dark, but his determination burned bright, a fire fueled by years of control. He muttered to himself, "Let's see what you're hiding, Deep." Meanwhile, James drove toward a newly acquired plot of land, his mind buzzing with excitement and ambition. The real estate venture was his chance to expand beyond the family business, a dream he'd nurtured for years. The road was rough, flanked by wild grasses and distant hills, a frontier begging to be tamed. He parked his Jeep, stepping out to survey the terrain. The sun beat down, illuminating the untamed beauty of the land. His boots crunched on the dry earth as he walked, a map in hand. He envisioned a thriving estate, houses, farms, and markets, transforming this wilderness. The silence was broken only by the wind and occasional bird cries, a canvas for his plans. He marked spots with stakes, imagining foundations and roads. Yet, beneath his enthusiasm, a nagging worry lingered. His father's recent coldness and the company's losses. He shook it off, focusing on the future. The land's potential was a distraction, a refuge from his troubles. He snapped photos, noting features for his architect. As he explored, a rustling in the bushes caught his attention. He paused, peering into the foliage, his heart quickening. Was it an animal or something more? He called out, but only silence answered. Shrugging, he continued, though his senses stayed sharp. The land's isolation was both its charm and its risk. He stumbled upon a small stream, its clear water a surprise in the arid stretch. Kneeling, he dipped his hand in, the coolness a relief. This could be a selling point, he thought. Suddenly, his phone rang, shattering the quiet. It was his father, his voice curt. "Where are you?" James explained his location, sensing an edge in the old man's tone. The call ended abruptly, leaving him uneasy. He wondered if his father knew about Deep, the girl whose corn sales had impressed him. Shaking his head, he resumed his survey, but the interruption lingered. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the land. He decided to head back, his mind torn between ambition and family. On the return, he spotted tire tracks not his own, raising his suspicions. Who else was here? He followed them briefly, but they vanished into the brush. A chill ran through him, perhaps his father's men? He dismissed it as paranoia, starting his Jeep. The engine roared to life, carrying him away from the mystery. Yet the land's allure remained, a promise of new beginnings. He resolved to return with the team, determined to turn his vision into reality. The horizon glowed with possibility. The drive back was quiet, the landscape blurring past. He thought of Deep again, her resilience inspiring him. Maybe he'd visit her market stall next time. A thought that warmed him. The road twisted, mirroring his thoughts, full of turns and uncertainties. He gripped the wheel, his resolve hardening. This land was his future, and he'd protect it, just as he hoped to protect those like Deep from the shadows closing in. After selling her corn, Diep made her way home, the empty basket swinging lightly at her side. The money in her pocket felt like a hard-earned treasure, a reward for her morning's toil. The trail back was familiar, lined with bamboo groves that whispered in the wind. She paused to catch her breath, the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. Her village came into view, its modest houses a welcoming sight. She smiled, imagining a warm meal and rest ahead. The sun was dipping, casting a golden hue over the landscape. At home, Diep decided to chop bamboo for a spice table, a practical project to occupy her hands. She selected sturdy stalks, her axe striking with precision. The rhythmic thud of wood echoed, a sound of creation amid the quiet. She trimmed and shaped the pieces, her mind drifting to the market's success. Sweat glistened on her brow as she worked, the physical effort grounding her. By dusk, the table stood complete, a simple, sturdy piece for her kitchen. Pride swelled in her chest as she admired her craftsmanship. She moved to the garden next, watering her plants with care. The soil drank eagerly and she tended each sprout, her hands gentle yet firm. The task was soothing, a contrast to the market's chaos. As she finished, she headed inside to cook rice, the aroma soon filling the small house. She stirred the pot, the steam rising like a comforting cloud. Her thoughts turned to safety, the stranger's stare at the market replaying in her mind. She shook it off, focusing on the meal. Just as she set the table, a knock sounded at the door. Startled, she opened it to find James, his face lit with a friendly smile. He explained he'd been nearby and thought to visit. Relief washed over her, and she invited him in. They sat, sharing the meal, the warmth of rice and conversation easing the day's tension. James brought a book, suggesting they read together. The pages turned slowly, their voices blending in the quiet night. A bond grew, unexpected yet welcome. Outside, the night deepened, but inside, a new friendship bloomed. Diep offered him tea, the steam curling upward like their shared stories. James spoke of his land venture, his eyes alight with dreams. She listened, her own aspirations stirring. The table she'd made held their cups, a symbol of their growing trust. Laughter punctuated their reading, a sound that chased away the day's shadows. They agreed to meet again, a plan forming in the cozy glow. The clock ticked softly, marking a peaceful end to a hectic day. Diep felt safe with James, his presence a shield against her earlier fears. They closed the book, the night wrapping around them like a blanket. She thanked him, her voice soft, and he nodded, promising to return. The bamboo table stood as a witness to their new alliance, a foundation for whatever lay ahead. As Diep and James bonded, unbeknownst to them, danger lurked closer. James's father, following his informant's lead, arrived near Diep's village. His car hid in the shadows, his eyes fixed on her house through binoculars. The old man's jaw tightened. Her success threatened his son's business, and he wouldn't tolerate it. His phone buzzed with updates. She was with James now. A scowl crossed his face. His son's naivety infuriated him. He dialed his men, ordering them to watch and report. Inside, Diep and James remained oblivious, their laughter a stark contrast to the tension outside. James's father muttered, plotting to discredit her. He imagined framing her for the company's losses, a scheme to protect his legacy. The night air was still, but his mind raced with strategies. His informant whispered that Diep's corn rivaled their stock, a fact that stoked his anger. He decided to confront her, but first he needed evidence. The stakes were personal now, a battle of pride. He stepped out, moving stealthily toward her house. The bamboo grove offered cover, its shadows his allies. He peered through a window, seeing the table she'd made, the book they shared. Jealousy flared. His son's trust in her was a weakness. He snapped a photo, planning to twist it against her. His breath quickened, the thrill of control surging. But a twig snapped underfoot, and he froze, cursing his carelessness. The sound carried a potential alarm. Inside, Diep tensed, hearing the noise. James noticed, whispering, "Stay here." He moved to the door, peering out, but saw nothing. The night's silence returned, yet unease lingered. James's father retreated, his plan delayed but not abandoned. He returned to his car, vowing to strike when the time was right. The game had escalated, and he relished the challenge. His phone lit up with another call, his network tightening around Diep. Back inside, Diep and James resumed their reading, but her mind wandered to the sound. James reassured her, his voice steady. They finished the chapter, the book's wisdom a balm. Yet, outside, James's father plotted, his shadow lengthening with the night. The bamboo swayed, hiding his retreat, but the threat remained. Diep's new friend was a target, and the old man's wrath loomed large. The next morning, Diep woke to sunlight streaming through her window, the bamboo table a quiet sentinel. James had left before dawn, promising to return with plans for her shop. She smiled, feeling a surge of hope. The garden called, and she tended her plants, the routine grounding her. The memory of the night's noise faded, replaced by dreams of her stall. She cooked breakfast, the sizzle of food a new beginning. James's visit had shifted something in her, a partnership forming. James arrived mid-morning, a sketch of her shop in hand. They sat at her table, refining the design. His enthusiasm matched hers, their ideas blending seamlessly. The threat from his father lingered unspoken, but their focus was on building. They planned a launch, inviting locals to support her venture. The market's success fueled their vision, a beacon of independence. Laughter filled the room, a shield against yesterday's shadows. The bamboo table held their plans, a symbol of their alliance. Outside, James's father watched from afar, his anger simmering. But Diep in James's resolve grew stronger. They decided to confront him, turning his scheme against him. James called his father, inviting him to see the shop plans. The old man arrived, his face a mask of surprise. Diep stood tall, explaining her honest work. James revealed the company's true losses, internal theft, not her doing. The truth unraveled his plot, leaving him speechless. The confrontation ended with a truce, the old man backing down. He saw Diep's integrity, James's loyalty, and relented. They shook hands, a new understanding dawning. The shop opened weeks later, a success that united the community. Diep's table stood in the stall, a testament to her journey. James and she worked side by side, their friendship a foundation. The sun shone on their achievement, a victory over adversity. Diep looked at James, gratitude in her eyes. He nodded, proud of their resilience. The bamboo grove swayed, now a symbol of growth. They planned expansions, their bond unbreakable. Customers flocked, and the village buzzed with pride. The past threats faded, replaced by a future of hope. Together they stood, ready for whatever came next. Their story etched in every ear of corn and stalk of bamboo.
Sống nghèo khổ là một tình trạng khó khăn và thử thách mà nhiều người trên thế giới phải đối mặt. Nghèo khổ có thể được định nghĩa là tình trạng thiếu thốn các nhu cầu cơ bản như thực phẩm, nước uống, chỗ ở, giáo dục và chăm sóc sức khỏe. Một số nguyên nhân dẫn đến cuộc sống nghèo khổ như thiếu việc làm, thu nhập không ổn định, thiếu giáo dục và kỹ năng, bệnh tật, khuyết tật, chiến tranh và xung đột, thiên tai và thảm họa tự nhiên, phân biệt đối xử bất công của xã hội. Cuộc sống nghèo khổ có thể dẫn đến nhiều hậu quả tiêu cực như sức khỏe kém, thiếu cơ hội giáo dục và phát triển, tăng nguy cơ bạo lực và tội phạm, giảm tự tin và lòng tự trọng, cách biệt xã hội và cảm giác cô đơn. Để cải thiện cuộc sống nghèo khổ, cần có sự kết hợp và các giải pháp cá nhân, cộng đồng và chính sách xã hội.